On January 30, 2026, Friday, 3.5 million pages of Jeffrey Epstein documents were released to the public. And you know what everyone talks about after investigating and looking at those documents? Who fucked who raped who tortured who, which celebrities were on the islands, how big was the operation, and what was the age of the youngest girl of them all. Now, while we were scrolling through Twitter lists and documents trying to figure out, was Donald Trump really sucking Bill Clinton, or was Gates really putting antibiotics to his wife after fucking some Russian models, the thing that we missed are the billions and billions of dollars, relations, extortions, and manipulations that were made in our own life from one guy being exposed. For a clear example, JPMorgan processed $1 billion for Jeffrey Epstein, for the pedophile that we were all talking about, one guy. While their compliance officers were screaming through the roof, this is money laundering, after seeing him taking out of his bank every month $70,000, $80,000 in cash, executives overruled him. And why? To get access to his network, to get access to Elon Musk, to Bill Gates, to Donald Trump, to Ehud Barak, to Sergey Brin, to the billionaires. You want to know what the Epstein Files actually reveal?
Inside the Justice Department noted that they hadn't been aware of this before investigating Maxwell in 2020. So this is after Epstein's death, and also that this person didn't want it to be a surprise down the road to whomever he or she is writing to.
It's not about the rape. Well, I mean, it is. And obviously, I don't support any form of physical abuse, neither towards women or towards men, and any person, woman or man that acts and activates on physical abuse, especially sexual physical abuse, should be castrated and death by the most painful death penalty there is. Subject over. There is no confusion about this. But this is not the main story. The story is, where did our money went? Where did our resources go to while we were watching the sex show? Since the beginning of human civilization, we've had the town square. Not the physical place, the town square, the concept. The place where people gather, where we exchange ideas, rumors, opinions, where we argue about our children, our lives, our politicians, our kingdoms, our governors, and our money. This is the defining characteristic that separates us between monkeys or different animals. The ability to articulate thoughts, organize collectively, and change power through shared information. The idea that we can trust a complete stranger simply because he's living in the same town as ours and exchange resources with him, exchange power, to get more power. But because of how powerful the town square is, every king, every emperor, every dictator, every president, every governor, from the beginning of history of mankind, tried to control and manipulate the town square to his own needs. The stupid ones did it with brute force. Mussolini shut down the press, Stalin disappeared journalists, etc., etc. The smart ones, they learned a better way. You don't silence the town square. You exchange its way of information. You switch the information that it has towards other places. Look at the monster who raped our children. Look at the monster who raped 13-year-old girls. Look at the monster who raped 16-year-old girls. Why were we looking at the monster? Rightfully disgusted, rightfully enraged. You miss the 40 other people in the room reconstructing and redistributing the resources of our lives and the money that we use to survive. And the systems they are building to control every aspect of our life with governmental approval. But before we dive into Marxist theory of exchanging resources and how important money is, etc., etc., let's first understand who the fuck is Jeffrey Epstein. Who was the guy? Jeffrey Epstein was born in 1953, New York, Brooklyn. He was a working class Jewish family. His father was a groundskeeper for the New York City Parks Department. By all accounts, the guy was unremarkable. He had no special grades, he had no special IQ, he had no performative, no rich family, no all the money, nothing. He went to Cooper Union, dropped out, went to NYU, dropped out, no college degree. Yet, in 1973, only 20 years old. He's teaching calculus and physics at the Delton School, an elite Manhattan private school, and again, no degree. So how is that? The headmaster at the time was Donald Barr. Yes, that Barr. William's Barr father. The same William Barr who was the Attorney General when Epstein died in federal custody. The same Donald Barr, by the way, the father of William Barr, the guy that hired him to Delton School, not Delton University, wrote a sci-fi novel called Space Relations. I haven't read the book, but I've read about it online. A book about a planet where elites buy and sell teenagers for, well, you get the point. And you know what they say about writers and their fantasies. But, again, I'm sure that's just another coincidence. The world is full of them, right? From there, after 1973, in the age of 23, Epstein jumped to Bear Stearns in 1976, investment banking. By 1980, when he's already 27, 4 years after, he's out, fired. Some say for violations, because he stole money. There is a claim that he gave money to his girlfriend with an insider trading and she invested for him. Some say he left on his own. The records are a bit murky, there is no clear understanding there. Then in 1982, only 29 years old, he founded his own firm, J. Epstein & Co., with a very specific business agenda. He only takes people with $1 billion net worth and above. And who was his first client? Leslie Wexner, the founder of L Brands, the Victoria's Secret Bath and Body Works, one of the richest men in America. And Wexner didn't just hire Epstein as money manager. He gave him full power of attorney on all of his resources, all of his finances. Over the next 2 decades, Wexner transferred an estimated $400 million plus in assets and fees to Epstein, including the Herbert N. Strauss house, which is a 21,000 square foot mansion in Manhattan, for $0. Obviously for tax reasons. Now, they say that nobody knows why. Wexner, when he was asked about it, he says he was conned. But I don't think a person worth that much money as Wexner can be conned so easily by a 29-year-old, especially not giving him a full power of attorney. So what was Epstein offering? Because clearly, he's no genius, not an investing one at least. Now, this is where it gets weird. There are accusations, unverified, no smoking gun, that Epstein had intelligent connections, specifically the Mossad, which is the CIA of Israel. Now let me be very clear here. I'm an Israeli, I'm Jewish. I have no anti-Semitism in here or no subjective idea about Epstein being a Mossad for the sake of saying that Israel controls the states or controls the world. This is a basic question about power structure. The theory goes like this. Epstein properties, such as Little St. James, Zorro Ranch, the Manhattan mansions, were all wired with cameras. All of them, every room, from the bathroom to the bedroom. The files confirm surveillance equipment was found. That's why they had so many documents on it. The question is, who was watching? Some say it was just Epstein, collecting blackmail for personal leverage as he did to Gates to ask him to keep funding his mansion for raping women. Other points to his relations with Ghislaine Maxwell, which is the daughter of Robert Maxwell, the British media mogul who had documented ties to Israeli intelligence and died under suspicious circumstances in 1991. Others point to the fact that Epstein's wealth never made sense. No one can trace where it came from. His firm had no public clients, no transparency, no real paper trail, which may indicate outside funding in a mass scale. Because when he died, he still had a net worth of $600 million. If you think the rape was the worst part, or the blackmail, or the resources fundings, I think we need to take a look at the New Mexico properties, the Zorro Ranch specifically. Again, there is cameras there, we know about that. The 2026 documents confirm something much worse. Epstein wasn't just trafficking women for the sake of pleasure. He was building a laboratory. He was trying to create a sort of army made out of his blood. He explicitly discussed plans to impregnate 20 women at a time at a laboratory like they do for cows to create more milk, in his ranch, the Zorro Ranch, to seed the human race with his DNA. We found, in the 2026 documents, correspondence where associates stroke his ego, telling him his genetic material, his bloodline, was too valuable to humanity to lose. This is where the story shifts. He didn't just want to fuck the world, he wanted to populate it. He was funding Harvard scientists, transhumanists, geneticists, not for charity, but to build a justification for his God complex. While we were looking at a sex offender, he was looking in the mirror and seeing a messiah. If you want to understand the true scope of Epstein's operation and its connection to Israel, which me personally believe he was a Mossad agent, but that's just me, you have to look away from the flight logs and look a moment at this photo. This was taken inside the Manhattan townhouse, long after Epstein's first conviction. It shows a casual Sunday morning gathering. You have Woody Allen in the corner, billionaire Thomas Pritzker on the left, and Epstein standing center stage. But the man, seated in the middle, looking like it's his own home, is the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak. For years, as an Israeli, I heard the defense from Barak. I visited only once, I tried to be a friend with him but he disappointed me, he proved his no worth. Yet the 2026 files that were released 2 days ago destroyed this thesis completely. They reveal that Barak wasn't just a visitor, he was not just a friend, he was practically a resident. Over 30 documented visits from Israel to different places of Barak to Epstein around the world between 2013 and 2017. The emails even show that Epstein's assistants weren't just booking his flights back and forth with his private jet, they show how Epstein's assistants managed IT setup for Barak's apartment. You don't manage the IT issues of a casual acquaintance. You do it for a partner. Now, regarding the rumors, specifically the Mossad question, there has been endless speculation about an email that Epstein allegedly admits or denies his reign. The truth in those files is much more nuanced and perhaps more dangerous. We didn't find a smoking gun email where he explicitly says, "I am Mossad." Instead, we found a pattern of ambiguity, weaponized ambiguity. Epstein knew that the perception of him being an intelligent asset to Israel was his shield. Nobody can touch him as nobody wants to mess around with the Mossad. The files reveal he wasn't just a blackmail ring. He was acting as a shadow diplomat. Correspondence suggesting Epstein was working in a back-end diplomatic relationship with Ehud Barak. We found pitch deck for drone and surveillance technology startups Barak was pushing. As known as before Epstein's conviction, Barak was trying to push a startup called Project Sun Spark. So it's safe to assume this is the project that Barak was trying to fund through Epstein. The photo is not just a coffee break. It is not just one visit and it's not Barak trying to give a pitch to the Sun Spark drones. It's a snapshot of a shadow government, of a backstage lobby controlling and applying its worth and applying its control all over the world. And this is just one small guy. Not small, but just one guy. You have a sex offender, a billionaire, a Hollywood director, and a former prime minister of a super powerful country, Israel, not hiding in the dark, but sitting in a townhouse in plain sight, trading state secrets and tech deals while the world looks the other way. Now, I don't know if Epstein was Mossad. I don't know if he was CIA. I don't know if he was just a really good blackmailer with a knack of finding billionaires who needed distinct services. What I do know is this: a man with no credentials, no traceable income source, and no obvious skill set somehow became the center of network that included US presidents such as Clinton and Trump, British royalty such as Prince Andrew photo that I will put here, showing clearly that he was in his house hovering over a young girl, tech billionaires such as Bill Gates and Elon Musk, writing explicit, clear emails and photos, hedge fund managers, as we talked about JPMorgan, academic from Harvard and MIT, politicians from both sides, from both parties. And when he died, the cameras stopped rolling. The files got sealed. And everyone said, well, he's dead. Case closed. Except now, we have 3.5 million pages. And you know what they show? They show that we don't know shit. Not about Epstein, not about where his money came from, not about who he was really working for, not about anything. But here is what we do know. Here is what's verified, documented in black and white. Here's the part that everyone missed while arguing about the flight log, where the money actually went. The circle is very simple. You have collection, processing, and destination. Step 1, collection. Leon Black, a billionaire co-founder of Apollo Global Management, paid Epstein $170 million between 2012 to 2017. For what? Allegedly, tax and estate planning advice. Epstein had no law degree, no accounting certification, no professional training, and no prior experience. Yet, he was paid more than the entire legal team of the most expensive law firms in America for this advice. Senate investigators found the true amount was allegedly $12 million higher than Apollo's own investigation claimed. And here's the real kicker. According to the US Virgin Island government settlement, it's a quote from them, Jeffrey Epstein used the money Black paid him to partially fund his operation in the Virgin Islands. That is not speculation, that is the legal settlement. So we have a source. Leon Black, $170 million goes to Epstein. JPMorgan Chase processed over $1 billion for Jeffrey Epstein between 1998 to 2013. That's approximately $100 million a year, more accurately $80 million a year. Compliance officers flagged cash withdrawals of $40,000 to $80,000 a month, classic money laundering structuring. Executives overruled the compliance team. Why? Because internal emails that we were shown in the 30th of December proves that they wanted introductions to his network. The bank lent him money, moved funds overseas, and set up accounts for his trafficking victims. They wired payments to women in Eastern Europe, surnames, Russian models. When compliance asked why, Epstein's lawyer said it was for tuition or rent for his friends. Explicit red flags for sex trafficking. The Deutsche Bank took over JPMorgan in 2013. He continued processing payments after his 2008 conviction, processed millions to Russian models and suspicious entities, and paid a $75 million settlement. The Bank of America handled hundreds of millions in Epstein funds, filed only 2 suspicious activity reports, covered $170 million in transactions between Epstein and Leon Black, filed years after the transactions well beyond legal requirements. The Bank of New York Mellon processed $378 million in payments. SARS filed years after Epstein's death, when the opportunity to intervene had already passed. Total across all banks, over $1.5 billion in flagged suspicious activities. No banking executive, no bank manager, no hedge fund manager, no one went to jail, and probably won't. Now the destination, where did it go? This is what they don't want us to see. The Virgin Islands tax haven. Epstein's Southern Company in the US Virgin Islands used the Economic Development Commission program to slash tax liability by 90%. They paid an effective tax rate of only 4%, saved approximately $300 million in over 2 decades, fraudulently obtained $80 million in tax benefits by claiming his company provided biomedical and financial informatics services. It did it. How did he get away with it? Regulatory capture through bribery. How did he get away with it? He placed the former First Lady of the Virgin Islands, Cecile de Jong, on his payroll. She suggested campaign donations and targeted gifts to universities and powerful politicians' families. These gifts helped Epstein win special visas to bring his young girls to the island, $300 million in illicit tax exemptions. The governor, Albert Bryan Jr., previously oversaw the agency that granted $300 million in tax credit to Epstein fraudulent company, secured his gubernatorial victory in 2018 with support from Epstein and his aides, later pushed for a waiver for Epstein to avoid compliance with the island's sex offenders law. But it even gets darker. The money didn't just disappear into tax saving. It funded the operation, the exact operation where Epstein were taking and trafficking young girls. From the Virgin Island government's lawsuits documents, JPMorgan processed over $1.1 million in payments from Epstein to women with Eastern European surnames after he was no longer a client. The USVI alleged these payments went to girls or women who were part of his trafficking network. The bank set up accounts not only for Epstein, but also quite a few of his victims who had been trafficked into the United States. It arranged Epstein to pay for those victims, both in the US and in Eastern European countries and in Russia. In at least 3 cases, Epstein forced trafficking victims into arranged marriages, 3 cases, to obtain immigration status so they could continue to be available for abuse. Epstein's attorney, Terence Lendke and Richard Kahn, provided letter of reference for immigration's application, paid immigration lawyers, processed tax services for the forced spouses. So, the circle is now complete. Leon Black pays Epstein $170 million for fake tax advice. Money flows through JPMorgan, Deutsche Bank, and Bank of America, lands in Virgin Island tax haven, the Southern Trust Company. Epstein uses tax benefits plus incoming funds to pay trafficking victims and recruiters, bribe Virgin Islands officials for protection, fund property purchases such as Little St. James, Zorro Ranch, and the Manhattan Mansion, wire money to Russian banks such as Alpha Bank and Sibir Bank, finance linguist experiments, and Harvard research for the Zorro Ranch. Banks profit from fees, executives get access to billionaire network that Epstein possesses. And, of course, nobody goes to jail. Other destinations that Epstein was using, Lord Peter Mandelson received transfer structured as loans to avoid gift taxes. Email that he wrote to Epstein reminded to avoid a gift tax filing, it must be a loan. His tech connections, such as Elon Musk, in 2012 to 2013, there's emails asking what day or night will be the wildest party on your island. With Bill Gates, Epstein tried to extort him over an affair to leverage investment funds for his island, with Sergey Brin placed over $4 billion into JPMorgan accounts at Epstein's urging. Category B is unverified claims. According to unverified FBI tip line submissions, which the DOJ informs may be disinformation flagged as fake or falsely submitted, there are claims involving Donald Trump and others. I don't want to be the conspiracy theory guy, but with Trump being president, I don't know how much I trust the DOJ. And not only that, they clear unlimited pictures of Trump hugging Epstein and the girls in the island, Trump clearly saying in a voice recording to his friend, grab her by the pussy, being in Playboy, playing in porn movies, being in the WWE, and generally acting in American degeneracy and being the person that he is, you understand the point. So here is what you need to understand, and what I'm trying to point here. A homeless man can grab a 13 or a 7 or even a 2-year-old baby, rape her, kill her, and slash her throat. Donald Trump, if the allegations are true, can do exactly the same. He, according to allegations, forced a 13-year-old to suck his dick. Both are monsters. Both deserve execution and castration. Surely Donald Trump's case is worse as he's the president of the USA, the strongest country today in the world, and it shows very bad light about his character. But the act of hurting the woman was made from both sides. Whether you are the homeless or Donald Trump, you still hurt that woman. Even a massive scale in the factory that Epstein created in his island of raping and abusing women is not the first and not the last. Things like this have been done in massive scales and keep on being done in massive scales, with or without Epstein in formality. The problem here is not the fact that someone was raped, neither it is the fact that someone was raped factorially wise. The problem here is that this was not made by some third world organization or some mobster such as Pablo Escobar and the weak government of Colombia that he was controlling. No. This was made by the president or by the friends of the president and multi-white collar billionaires that we know and speak of and adore day-to-day basis in a factory lab. The issue is not that those people were doing it behind the scenes, the opposite. They were doing it in broad daylight using the biggest banks that we are using today to control our resources, such as JPMorgan and the Bank of America, knowingly, perfectly well, that they funded those factories because they wanted access to Epstein big network. Because what do you think exactly happened in those islands? You think they went there and fucked 24/7? I'm sure there is a lot of rape, a lot of cocaine, a lot of misuse and abuse happening in those islands. I don't doubt it for a second. But those lobbyists, those rich men, those billionaires and tech and diplomats and presidents weren't meeting there simply to have sex with young women or to snort cocaine. They were meeting there to change the way that we perceive the world in order to feed their God complex, in order to become bigger and bigger monsters and pigs that are taking every possible resources that we have. And here is the worst part. This is just what leaked through the cracks. Though 3.5 million pages might sound like a lot, but this is just one fucking guy. This is one network that he was building behind the scenes. In the Pandora Papers, there were 11.9 million documents showing the tax havens that the rich people are using to avoid tax payments. Obviously, nobody went to jail because of it. In the Panama Papers, 2.6 terabytes of papers showing the tax havens. In Paradise Papers, FinCEN Papers, Swiss leaks, every few years. Massive leaks, same pattern. Global financial system designed to extract resources from the many, concentrate them in the law, and nobody gets arrested, and people just get no, or how could you have done this, or whatever. Now, what I want to get out here is for you to ask yourself, if these leaks leak out accidentally, through cracks, lawsuits, and pedophiles, how much more happens underneath the ice, underneath the water, what we cannot see, under the surface? Personally speaking, I think they leaked this shit on purpose. They let you see Epstein, the $1 billion, the tax havens. While you're reading that, you're not asking about the 100 times more worse things that are actually happening under the surface. But maybe that's just me. Here is what I know for sure. None of these things that we fight about is actually what we need to fight about. It's not about Republicans versus Democrats. It is not about white versus black. It is not citizens versus immigrants. It is not about men versus women. It is not about gay versus straight. Those are symptoms of the manufactured scarcity. When $300 million disappears into a tax haven, when $1 billion flows through banks with no consequences, there is less for everyone else. And when people are desperate, they don't look up at who stole the money, they look sideways to blame each other. And again, this is just the tip of the iceberg that we can actually see. Political parties, presidents, elections, it's all a facade for where the money and the resources actually go. The real decisions about who controls the resources, where do they flow, how they're protected, those aren't made in Congress. They're made in boardrooms, banking compliance meetings where executive override lawyers, tax havens commission in the Virgin Islands, and in Epstein house. You think it's a coincidence that no banking executive went to jail for $1.5 billion in suspicion activity? Deutsche Bank paid $75 million pocket change and kept operating as a fine for its misconduct. Wexner transferred $400 million and no one asked questions until Epstein was dead. Leon Black's son was just appointed by Trump to run the US International Development Finance Corporation, the agency Trump wants to convert into a sovereign wealth fund, and nobody's asking questions about his dignity and about his use. That is not the broken system. This is not just some bad apples in a barrel. This is the system. Now, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what I see. 3.5 million pages of evidence that the game is rigged. $1 billion, no one in jail. Political parties screaming through the roof about gender equality and gender fluidity and black against whites while they all take money from the exact same pool. And you and all of us and me as well are fighting in the town square over symptoms while the disease keeps spreading. The town square still exists, and it's much bigger and much more available for anyone than before. It's in your pocket 24/7. But the politicians, they filled it with a circus. And until you look past the show, past the outrage, past the scandal, and see the resources extraction, you're not having the conversation. You're just another audience member. If you don't believe me, or you think I'm just saying data out of my ass, I've put the direct links to the primary sources in the description below. Senate Finance Committee reports, court filings, settlement agreements, and news reports. If you think I missed a connection into 3.5 million pages, or I threw a stat out of my ass, or I say complete wrong things and Jeffrey Epstein and Trump are beautiful men who were accused by the Israeli government for conducting support for Israel or whatever it is, please be a part of the town square. Right here in the comments below, the private town square that we have here, and conduct your opinions, conduct your ideas. Fight with me to the best of us wins and to the best of our capabilities understand. Let us fight our opinions and our ideas using the digital town square that, ironically speaking, is controlled exactly by those we are critiquing here. But we'll go into that in the next videos and the concept of cloud capital and the techno-feudalism that we created in ourselves as the next stage of capitalism in the next video. Thank you guys for watching.